How do you manage a fishery when the fishery is split across multiple countries? What is a muskie that big doing in Toronto? Are suckers finally doing that thing that we, well, one of us, loves to film them doing? To find out, let's ask Dr. Fish. That's right, it is Ask Dr. Fish, our every other month live streaming show in which we ask science questions, fish questions, and life questions of our two Drs. Fish. And this month, very special, we are live from the International Association of the International Association of Great Lakes Research Conference on the Great Lakes, I think is what it's called. Anyway, we're live from the conference in Toronto, the T-Dot as we like to call it, and we are super fired up to be here. My name is Stuart Carlton, and I am Assistant Director of Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, and I am not a Dr. Fish. I'm joined today by Carolyn Foley, not here in person, but here in spirit, coordinator and our official Canadian, also not a Dr. Fish. Carolyn, how's it going?
I am all right, thank you. And it's the annual conference, the International Association for Great Lakes Research Annual Conference.
Annual conference, the annual conference. Well, I will annually screw that up, I have a feeling. We're also joined by Dr. Katie O-Reilly, a Dr. Fish, one of ours. She's aquatic invasive species specialist at Illinois Indiana Sea Grant. She's a Dr. Fish, and she's right here beside me. Katie, how's it going?
It is going great. It is awesome to be here in Toronto and actually see you guys in real life.
I know, it's highly unusual for me to have done this. I like it. I like seeing people, at least on a very limited scale. Titus Seilheimer, other Dr. Fish, Wisconsin Sea Grant's fishery specialist. Titus, how are you today?
I'm doing well.
All right, you have a fish shirt? Let's see it.
There's no fish in it.
No fish.
But it is, it's kind of festive and happy.
It's festive and happy, much like fantastic. Well, we are excited to get going. We're going to get started actually. So yeah, we are lucky. We're here at IAGLR in Toronto. The conference is just getting started. It's going to be a week of like all kind of cool science, fish related and otherwise. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about the conference, what we hope to get out of it. We're lucky our two Drs. Fishes are actually presenting at the conference, but we're also going to take your questions. And so if you have any questions and you're live right now on YouTube or Facebook, or maybe if anybody's live on Twitter, just go ahead and post them. Write in a little chat box and we will see them and we will respond to them. If you are live on Twitter, though, you have to use a hashtag. What hashtag are we using?
Ask Dr. Fish.
Hashtag Ask Dr. Fish. So let's do that, and you can do it live there. If you're not listening and you want to ask a question some other time, go for it. Just send us an email. AskDrFish@gmail.com. Too many shows, too many years, too many beers. AskDrFish@gmail.com, and we will get to it. And we do have a fish hotline, but I don't know the number, so we'll have to get to that at another point. All right, well, let's get started. So it is a conference. It's a scientific conference, and so those are pretty fun. And, there's a lot of people here talking about their work. But I want to hear what y'all are going to present, kind of in the short version. What are you going to present this year at IAGLR, Titus, and is it fish related?
Oh, Stuart, it's fish related. That's why I'm here. I'm Dr. Fish, and I'm here to talk about fish. Actually, my first IAGLR conference was in 2001 in Green Bay. So I've got a kind of a long history with the IAGLR meetings, and it's really one of my favorite conferences. I'll be talking about the work we did last year in Green Bay, looking at fish in coastal wetlands and associated with wild rice or not wild rice. So it should be fun.
That is fun. So tell me, I'm supposed to bring up the image. Sorry, live listeners, since we're at the conference, we don't have our normal professionals here trying to save it. So I will call up the image, Titus, while you tell me about this work just a little bit.
Yeah, so we have been, and my coastal wetland work goes back to 2001 as well. So long history working in Great Lakes coastal wetlands, and recent years I've been able to team up with a team out of University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and they are planting, seeding wild rice to restore it in these habitats in these coastal wetlands. And so I was like, hey, I want to get involved with that, and I want to look at some fish. So we teamed up and started going out last summer and sampling fish, and lots of fun.
Yeah. So what is the deal with the wild rice? Let's pretend that I was totally paying attention and not trying to figure out how to share this picture that I can't figure out how to share. But so wild rice. So this is a deal. Is this the rice when you go to the grocery store and you buy it, it's like brown but it's always mixed with other rice, and it's really tasty. And you can tell it's good for you because it kind of hurts going down. What is the deal with that, and how is it related to fish exactly?
Yeah, so that wild rice widespread across kind of our part of the country, the Upper Great Lakes. It is Zizania is the genus, and there's a northern wild rice and a southern wild rice. And traditionally, like culturally, really an important species. It was going back millennia. This was a staple food for the indigenous peoples of the region, and in a place like Green Bay. Historically, it was very widespread. And, on the picture there that you're looking at, that's what wild rice looks like. It's this kind of dense bed there, and you can go out and harvest it. And then the seed you buy, like if you get wild rice at the store, that's probably cultivated. So they grow it in
cultivated wild rice?
Yeah.
It's in the jumbo shrimp section, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Northern Minnesota, they grow a lot of it up there and then harvest it, but you have to process it. It's all a big kind of process. Second picture there is just some of our fish work. So
that's an awesome picture. Who took that? Is that Moira?
I took that one.
You took that one.
I took that picture.
How'd you take a good picture? There's not even a fish spawning in it.
I know. Well, see, I did not take that picture. Yeah. So me, getting to hug this, kind of jumbo carp there, but also not smiling because, they're not native to the Great Lakes. Yeah. But, at this point, they've been here over 100 years. And but I was holding it like a baby.
Who was smiling?
Yeah.
The carp was smiling.
The carp
might not have been. That carp was like in the embrace, man.
I was, you just rock him to sleep. And, other coastal wetland species too, like that large snapping turtle. Which we found in the mouth of the net. It's always, we were also using pike nets, and it's always a bit of a surprise. And Katie's been there too. You lift the net up and here's this giant snapping turtle looking at you. So
how do you not get, I've always wondered about this. So when I was in graduate school, I auditioned, there was a TV production company looking for somebody to do a nature show. And I was like, oh, clearly I have the looks to be on a nature show. Plus the camera does. Anyway, and so I was recording a thing, and I was thinking about this nature show, right? It's like when you buy a lottery ticket, you're just dreaming about what could happen. And I was thinking to myself, but could you catch a snapping turtle without getting your finger bit off? And so A, have you gotten a finger bit off? And B, if not, how do you do that?
I've got all 10 too. And really, you want to just keep your hands away from the bitey side of the fish or the turtle, and you grab it. You don't actually, people will lift them up by the tail, and that's actually really bad for turtles because that's part of their spine, and don't do that. But if you looked at how I was holding him, you grab the back kind of over the legs on the shell in the back. So they can't reach you with their head, but they kind of scratch you a bit, but that's okay.
It's better than the mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Good to know. Fantastic. So what is there a take? So you're going to present it. So if you're in depth, when are you talking for people who are listening live at the conference or people who are in here? Do you remember your? Yeah,
we've got a full house here live in Toronto. Great to see our audience. Come on down Thursday in the afternoon at the Coastal Wetlands session. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be a lot of fun. One must fake it until one makes it. Okay. Katie O-Reilly, Dr. Fish. Dr. Catfish.
Yes.
Dr. Catfish. What are you presenting at IAGLR this month?
So I am presenting actually not really a science-y talk, which will be kind of interesting for me. But I am presenting in a session we have on Friday. So just a great way to end your conference week.
Nobody wants science on Friday anyway.
Exactly.
They're yeah.
Exactly. So I'm presenting about 25 days of Fishmas.
Fishmas.
Yes. So for those who aren't familiar with Fishmas, it is a Twitter campaign I do every December featuring different Great Lakes fish species, kind of in an advent calendar type way.
Yeah.
But this time I'm taking one aspect of the Fishmas extravaganza and focusing on the invasive species that I feature, who, if you're looking at the image on our live stream, the invasive or introduced species get Grinch faces instead of a Santa hat. So, the gist of my talk is looking at if there's differences in audience engagement between the species that are presented as happy Santa Santa native species or mean evil Grinch.
Is this what you did this year? I don't remember this.
This was the calendar from this year.
What was I doing over Christmas? I don't know. Not paying attention to this, I guess. Oh, yeah. Other things were happening with Twitter at that time. Now I remember.
There was a lot happening.
Yeah. Okay. So this is, look at this. Okay. So go back to the first image, please. This is what I want to point out. So you have this cute little themed How the Grinch Stole Fish. It's very clever. And then that is a lamprey mouth. Is that right?
That is indeed a sea lamprey mouth.
Okay. It looks like a donut. That's what I was thinking.
Every time since you've said that, Stuart, I can only see a donut looking at that.
The donut that'll bite you back, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The snack that bites back.
Yeah. Carolyn, have you eaten a lamprey donut before?
No, I have not eaten a lamprey donut.
First time for everything.
There
Excellent.
Let's do it.
And so, what is your talk? Your talk is Friday. You're in the hammer position.
I am in the hammer position. I am Friday at 11 a.m., which is the conference ends at noon.
Yeah. So you're the opening act for Dick Dale or whoever's closing it down. Fantastic. Or no, wait, we're in Canada. The Tragically Hip will come in right after you.
Oh, Stuart.
Oh, what? Wait, is that bad?
Too soon, man. We can talk about it later, but too soon.
I didn't know. I had no idea.
You've offended the Canadians.
Okay. Wait, nope. Somebody just died in Rush. Neil Young. Neil Young is safe.
For now.
For now. Yes. All right. The still remaining Canadian Neil musician. All right, good. You know what? Let's move on. Number 2, binational. Topic number 2. Ask Dr. Fish, binational fisheries management. So I was thinking as I was crossing over Lake Huron, maybe? Whatever lake I was crossing over. One of these Great Lakes. I got all these Great Lakes. And I was crossing over one of them. And I was in the United States, and then I was in Canada. As one does. I stopped at the border and got interrogated a little bit, had some questions, forgot to sign my passport. That's cool. And then I pulled over to sign it, and the Border Patrol people said, "Sir, you can't stay here." And anyway, it was all good, but we got going real quick. And so anyway, but after that, I thought to myself, this is complicated because we have this big lake and we have fish, and there are fish in the lake, right? And they swim, but they don't stay. They don't know in fact, I couldn't even tell. There were boats in the lake. And there was no like red line or, red and white on one side and red, white, and blue, I guess. There was nothing like that, right? And so it got me thinking that, in fact, we had talked about it in advance. It got me thinking about binational fisheries management. And so that's really complicated. So Titus, what is it that we do in order to start to work towards managing that fishery?
Yeah, so it comes down to cooperation. It's really important, and we go back to say the 1800s, and as long as fish. You pointed out, fish don't know there's a border there. They don't care. They'll swim wherever. They might spawn in the U.S., but maybe someone catches them in Canada. So it's really a shared resource, and it requires that cooperation and working together to manage that. And so, it took a long time, though. It took, really 100 years at least to come to the agreements to really get both countries to work together and say, okay, we are going to manage these fisheries together and with a consensus kind of manner. And so that is where the Great Lakes Fishery Commission comes in, 1950s. They come up with this sort of treaty between the U.S. and Canada that creates the commission. The commission is sort of this group that can help coordinate the states and the provinces and the tribes to all get together and talk and make decisions, as well as control sea lamprey.
Yeah, I was going to say, Titus mentioned it took like 100 years for anything to happen. There were lots of stops and starts to trying to have this binational collaboration. But what really kind of was the kick in the pants that got everybody working together were the sea lamprey. When this invasion happened in the mid 20th century and was decimating the stocks of native fish, basically the US and Canada were like, this problem is way too big for just one of us to handle. So we really need all hands on deck. So it's kind of interesting that it was an invasive species that really brought the two countries together.
And even today, so, the two countries work together, and there's a huge focus on sea lamprey, right? From the perspective of the Great Lakes Fisheries Commission.
Yep.
Yeah, so they help to, they coordinate a lot of that. Like you need one group really to coordinate that. So, sea lamprey control is kind of contracted out from the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, and they kind of send money to Canada, to the U.S., and then they do the monitoring and the control actions and all of that. So.
Well, and it was actually kind of interesting. COVID disrupted a lot of the treatment because there were, restrictions on border crossing and everything. And so we've seen sort of at least a mini resurgence of sea lamprey that hopefully we're, going to get under control again. But it was just, to stress the importance of having that cross-boundary collaboration, not just for managing the fish stocks that are really important to both countries and to the tribes, but also just dealing with an invasive species.
Yeah. And I think a really cool kind of, that's an example, like, because sea lamprey control, the efforts have been successful. It's one of the most successful invasive species control programs really ever. And so for a lot of people out on the lakes, a lot of anglers, they might not, they don't see as much lamprey damage as they used to. So, actually this kind of COVID halting it and actually seeing that rapid response of more sea lamprey just from like 1 year of no treatment is really a good example of why the lamprey control needs to keep happening, because it doesn't take a lot before we get more sea lamprey.
So from like a science perspective, that was kind of cool that they had that year off, right? I mean, not a worthy trade overall.
But hey, someone can write some papers about it. So
right.
There you go.
The
science.
fish might not think it was quite as cool, but
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, they can write a paper. There's science.
So you mentioned the tribal connections a little bit. Can you talk a little bit more about so there's Canada and there's the US, and then how do the different tribal nations around the Great Lakes region get involved with like the decision making and things like that?
you want to take this time?
Yeah, I can take that up. So the way, each I can kind of speak mainly from a U.S. perspective, but I think it's similar in Canada as well with First Nations. But it is really, tribal nations are sovereign nations. So it's like the U.S., Canada, and each one of these tribal nations is another nation. So they weren't really involved as much in the past, and it was just U.S. and Canada. And I think more of the understanding and kind of more buy-in, I think, both from the U.S. and Canadian governments, but also from the tribal nations, that they want to be involved and they want to be at the table at kind of an equal level as these other nations and states, and so more and more of the different tribes have joined the lake committees, and there are these. Also kind of groups like the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission and the Chippewa-Ottawa Resource Authority that, do this kind of coordinated science for a lot of different tribes. And they're also at the table at these fish commission things. So it is, they have, tribal kind of indigenous beliefs, look at sea lamprey in a different way. And I think, there's also an interesting session on Friday about kind of the language we use about invasive species. And, it's not their fault they're here. And, maybe we don't treat them like garbage or.
Yeah, I have to
Grinches.
say. Or I'm sorry?
Or Grinches.
Grinches.
Yeah.
Fair enough. If you are in town, I recommend going to that. I went to a similar session hosted at the Carefully Enunciated JASM conference last year. And it was really, really great. It was one of the best sort of discussions. So you go to conferences, and this is partially my brain, and you watch people read bullet points for a week. And by 18 minutes into that, I'm kind of over watching people read bullet points. And then I start thinking about, binational fisheries agreements, the shapes of lamprey mouth, that sort of stuff.
As you do.
Yeah, as one does, or at least as I do. And so, last year at JASM, they just ended up having this whole conversation because half the people couldn't show up anyway because COVID and airlines and whatever. It was really great. It's really thought-provoking stuff. And I know we intend to have a bunch more conversations about that here and on the big show when it is time.
All right. So for all those listening, and I see Stuart making funny noises because he's trying to do this live. This is Ask Dr. Fish, live from the International Association for Great Lakes Research Conference in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. If you have a fish question, a science question, or a life question for our doctors, put it into the chat right now, or use the Twitter hashtag AskDrFish. You can also email askdrfish@gmail.com. And so now we're going to launch into a question where we got some feedback kind of after the fact on our last episode. So there was a comment that said...
That's right. So you can leave, if you're watching this later, hold on, let's be clear. Just go ahead and leave a comment on Facebook. We'll find it. We'll reply. Maybe. I mean, it depends. Anyway.
We're not on the internet that, like, we don't show up on the internet that much. So we get excited when we do. And then we see the comments later and we go, hey, we should talk about this. So, okay.
All right. Anyway.
So feedback from the last episode. There is a consumption warning on every fish in the Great Lakes and in most, if not all, inland lakes and rivers. None of them are truly edible. I think that none of the fish are truly edible. So don't talk about what fish can be eaten, talk about why they can't be eaten. So I just want to throw that, because this is a complex question, right? So can we balance that off of each other? Maybe we'll go to Titus first because he talks about eating fish all the time on this show. Maybe talk about why fish can't be eaten and then take it from there.
Yeah, and I think I'd push back a little bit on the language there. There are certainly fish consumption advisories on a lot of fish species, and those are in place so that, people can make informed decisions on how much fish they should eat. And I wouldn't say that it's every single fish species. There are certainly fish species out there in the Great Lakes, especially places like Lake Superior and inland lakes too, where, there's an unrestricted consumption advice. And the states work really hard on this. There's a lot of testing. We kind of know what is out there. And for a lot of those, it's mercury. Mercury is, there's this atmospheric component to that. And it is, the consumption is based on how much mercury is in those fish species, and then what rate you can metabolize that out of your body, which you can. Other kind of tricky things like PFAS or PCBs, you can't get rid of. So there may be some thinking about that a bit more too, in a different way.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. Not only is it not every fish species, there's different, making sure that you're filleting and getting just like white muscle. In some cases, a lot of these contaminants kind of preferentially stick to adipose or fat tissue. And so fattier fish typically, might have a higher contaminant load. If you get like a strip of fat when you're making your fillet, that could add it. So there's ways you can fillet to kind of cut down on the amount of contamination. And just to kind of build off what Titus was saying, it is really it's an issue of communication and communicating about risk. Because particularly a lot of these consumption advisories disproportionately affect communities that may rely on fish pretty heavily for subsistence, such as the indigenous communities across the Great Lakes Basin. And so we have to kind of weigh and like Titus said, allowing people to be empowered to make those decisions by weighing sort of this, cultural health benefit of consuming fish with kind of the idea that, not all of the fish are, maybe contaminated the same way.
Okay. Yeah. And, I'll go back to the comment too. I think maybe we should be madder about this contamination in our fish too, because, really it's like, we know where the sources are coming from. Things like mercury, it's because, people burn coal and it deposits out. For things like PCBs, it was because, hey, you just dilute the, pollutant, it goes into the water, it's gone. And it's not gone, it's in the fish, it's in us. And then, things like PFAS as well, that's really a topic of right now. Like there's a lot of PFAS going into the environment still today and ending up in fish, ending up in us. And I think, really the onus here is kind of on us and down the road. And I don't think that's fair either. It should be, we should be able to eat as much fish as we want. And I think that's the ultimate goal here, which is a hard goal to have when we're continuously finding new chemicals that affect us.
Yeah, we talked about this a lot actually in the last episode of Teach Me About the Great Lakes, live from the Emerging Contaminants in the Environment Conference with John Scott of the Illinois Institute for Tech. I don't know. Anyway, teachmeaboutthegreatlakes.com/80. It was a really interesting conversation. It was just that. And there are chemicals that we don't even know about, right? But I think it's a good point. We do, and I hadn't thought about it in this way because of the issues that we work on, frankly, is what it is. And given the stuff that I work on, we often talk about how many fish you can eat, but we don't talk about that upstream thing. And I think that is a fair point that the listener makes. And then the other thing that stinks about this, though, is like the fish they recommend are those little European-style fish, right? And they're always like, you should eat down the food chain, but that stuff is gross. And so like little sardines or whatever. And so it's a big challenge as far as what to do.
Smelt are good. They're kind of little. Smelt are yummy. Okay, so since you all are in T.O. Toronto, I've been trying to school Stuart on the lingo. I am not from T.O. I am from Southern Ontario, Southwestern.
So anyway, no, hold on. Because I'm curious, because you were saying Toronto stinks, and like I've been going around Toronto, it's been really fun, and so I'm looking for the part that stinks. And again, we'll talk about this more Wednesday. If you're listening now, come to the Brew House, Amsterdam Brew House, Teaching About the Great Lakes Live. If Carolyn's able to join in on that, I have a lot of questions. It'll be more appropriate for that show than this one.
Yeah, we'll save it for that one. Okay, we're going to save it for that one. I'm going to say a good thing about Toronto right now, which is we have a story that we found talking about fishing in and eating fish from the Toronto harbor. So I wanted to see if Katie and Titus had any specific thoughts about fishing in harbors in a big city, or kind of, like, I think this is a really nice example overall of some guidance that if people want to get out, even if they're in the big city, they can go and they can think about which fish should I eat or things like that. So maybe to Katie first this time.
Yeah, so I mean, harbor fishing is such a cool thing. We see it a lot in the Chicago region, which is kind of my neck of the woods. And I think that's really, when we're talking about accessibility to folks, harbor fishing is often some of the most accessible fishing that you can get. And when it comes to contaminants, it's kind of a matter of like the different types of fish. Some fish are more kind of homebodies, so they might stay in a closer area. And if that harbor has like an area of concern, which is like a designation from the EPA, maybe you have to be a little bit more cautious about eating a fish that's, kind of a homebody there. There's also fish that are more migratory that may not be spending a ton of time, in any one particular space. So it's kind of a, again, knowing your species, knowing what the history of your area has been, and then also just kind of, maybe following some of those guidelines and how often you can eat a fish or type of fish as well.
I got a fish catching in the harbor story. So I used to work as a marine fisheries biologist for the state of Florida, believe it or not. Not a Dr. Fish, but I used to be a master fish.
Master fish.
Anyway, and so I was quitting that job for reasons that we aren't going to talk about right now. So I put in my time, but it was right on this thing called Bayboro Harbor in St. Pete, Florida. And there was a really nasty red tide in the area at the time. And so for those who know, red tide, it's an algae bloom. And it screws with the fish really, like it's bad for grouper because grouper like hunker down to red tide. And you don't want to hunker down because it binds with their gills and they can no longer breathe oxygen out of the water, which means they die. And then they float up to, anyway, it's real gross. And, but other fish move around. And so there were just sharks like mad in the harbor. Bull sharks. I'd never seen a bull shark before. There should not be bull sharks there. But I went out fishing for the heck of it because I had quit my job and put in my time, and it was this hourly thing, and there were no benefits and nobody watching the shop either. And so I went out at lunch to go fishing, and so I caught a cobia, a slot-sized cobia, about a 44-inch cobia. It took me and my buddy Jim, 75 minutes, because this was on like a 10-pound test line, to reel in that cobia. And anyway, super fun, great fish. My dad, we'd always wanted to catch one. My dad calls them the best eaten fish in the Gulf. It didn't eat me, but I ate it. And eventually that mercury will be gone. It's been, 15 years, 18 years?
I think you're good.
It was worth it, though. It's totally worth it. Hey, we have a question. Rob W for winner, asks a question about sea lamprey. If there were no lampricide application during COVID, were there any passive controls that come to light that might work because of the lack of lampricide? Oh, interesting. So, yeah, did you notice they were being controlled some other way, I guess? Titus, do you have knowledge about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, lampricide is the main, really the backbone of the control program. But, there are other things like barriers, and some of those are, existing barriers that have been there and they, stop lamprey. There's also purpose-built lamprey barriers, which, because lamprey aren't great swimmers, you can just have kind of this low barrier, and as long as it has the right kind of angle and overhang, the lamprey can't get over it. But fish, things like salmon and, kind of more agile fish can jump over that. So it's not a total barrier. And so those things are out there and we know about those. And, I don't know that anything new came out, but, certainly.
So is the lampricide, Kate, I think you know a fair amount about lampricide too. That's how it's going to be for life, or as far as they know?
I mean, barring some event that would, maybe climate or environmental conditions change and the lamprey no longer thrive in the Great Lakes, but barring some massive event like that, I think for at least the foreseeable future, it's really going to just be this kind of constant or consistent lampricide application. Because like Titus mentioned earlier, we saw just even in that short COVID window, we've already seen their numbers bounce back up. So unless there's some weird environmental change, I don't see it ending anytime soon.
Yeah, and there's, to link. Oh, Carolyn, you go.
I would. Sorry, I interrupted your flow. But so when you say numbers bounce back up, is that the juveniles that they are seeing bounce back up, or?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, that is. So for those who aren't familiar with the lamprey life cycle, they have a really cool.
Insert correct data.
Yes.
Later on.
I don't know now. Here's what you do. So if you go to a defense or whatever, or even a job interview, but a master's of defense, graduate students out there, you say, I don't know, but here's how I'd answer that question.
Yeah.
Or here's where I'll go to find the answer. And where you're going to go is ask Dr. Fish next month, and we'll have the answer.
Right. I mean, the reason Carolyn brings up a really good question is because the lampricide is applied to the streams where the juveniles live. And so it kills them at that juvenile stage, but they don't emerge into adults until, in some cases years later.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I think it would be probably out right to their life cycle. They, from the emerging lamprey that go out, and then they spend about a year in the lake. So, that's enough time, because there's this whole, they have this whole plan every year of how many streams they're going to visit and how many they're going to treat. So, if they don't get treated, those juvenile lamprey are there. They're not dead as they would have been. So they could go out. So they could either see upticks in numbers of those migratory transformers. They're called transformers when they transform from their non-parasitic form to their adult parasitic form. So numbers there, and also if the amount of wounding as well as the number of adults that they see. So I think they would see increases in both of those.
Cool. Okay, Transformers plug. I actually have a cat here. Her name is Optimus Prime. So Transformers plug. All right.
I'm trying. All right.
And while Stuart tries, I wanted to go back to, there he goes.
Oh, sorry. Keep going.
So, I wanted to go back to the other, alternatives to lampricide. And there has been a ton of research, and also a callback to the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, because they actually fund a lot and coordinate the research into new lamprey control. So not only is it, looking at making sure lampricides are safe for other species like sturgeon, we want to protect the sturgeon and also kill the lamprey. They also look at a lot of different things like using pheromones, because lamprey are really, that's how they find these streams. They use their nose, they follow their nose to find those other lamprey that are there. So if the idea here, maybe we can either push or pull them into, maybe you can push them into traps or, pull them into poor habitat. So, there is a lot of science that has been going on for years. It's really cool, but lampricide is still the most effective and kind of the most efficient way to do things.
They follow their nose. It always knows. Do you remember this? So this is like a whole 80s deal, man, because that was the Fruit Loops. You remember the Fruit Loops? Follow my nose. It always knows. We got that. We got the Transformers. Man, hold on. All right. We need a Halloween special. That's what it just occurred to me. Hey, this is Ask Dr. Fish, our live streaming show where our two doctors fish our two doctors' fishes, answer your fish questions, your science questions, and your life questions. If you have a question for our doctors, just put it in the chat right now. Do it. We will wait. Use the Twitter hashtag AskDrFish. Send us an email. We won't get it to today, but we'll get to it next time. AskDrFish@gmail.com. And so now we are going to move on up to fish spawning. It is our time of year, Titus. So those of you who know, follow Titus on social media. We've talked about this before, but it's
totally normal, Stuart. Lots of people watch spawning fish.
It's true.
Not just me.
I just haven't met any of them, but I guess maybe they're out there. You know why? Because they're out watching spawning fish while the rest of us are eating poutine or whatever. And so anyway, or suffering. Anyway, all right, enough of that. Spawning fish, Titus. You're taking sucker fish spawning videos. Are the suckers spawning?
What?
Right now? Are the suckers spawning?
Yeah, and I actually just checked my shared monitoring form to see, because I couldn't be there today, but the other volunteer for our Silver Creek monitoring, she was out there, Wendy Lutzke, calling out her. Good job, Wendy.
Good work,
you were
Wendy.
there.
Go, Wendy.
And she counted 12 suckers in Silver Creek. So we actually, this has been a weird year because we had, if you remember, it got really warm. It got, and the fish started spawning. They were like, whoa, it's over 10 degrees Celsius. I love it. And we're, lots of active spawning. We're counting 50 fish. And then it got cold for like a month. And the suckers they were like, nope, too cold, not interested.
We got a video here.
Yeah. And so this video was during that, hey, everybody's happy. We're going to go out there spawning.
Oh, look at that. That's a sucker. What kind of sucker is that?
These are white suckers.
White suckers.
Yeah.
But they're, that coloration, is that their spawning coloration?
Yeah, so that's what,
kind of ruddy?
they get kind of that dark stripe, and some of them will have a little reddish tinge to them too.
Yeah.
The kind of other sucker that we don't see in this creek, but long-nosed suckers, they have smaller scales and are really just beautiful red side when they're
big feet too
when they're spawning. So just great. So I go out there when we have decent water clarity, put out the GoPro camera, and I walked away, leave it for like an hour. And then it's like opening your Fishman's presents. You get to see, get anything, is there anything on?
We're not seeing the three fish wriggle here, are we?
I was going to say, and you leave it and wait so they have some privacy.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
They don't like it when you walk out into the middle of their riffle and you're like, oh, hello, just putting the camera down
Don't
here.
mind me.
But they don't mind being broadcast live to YouTube and Facebook.
I had them sign a waiver.
The baby suckers, they had to get their little mommy in there. What about I guess, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
What other species? I think you have a steelhead video too. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
So that is,
Thanks.
you can, and this one is maybe a little more interesting. The suckers,
Whoa.
I had 8 minutes here, and this. So
they
this
do that with their mouth the whole time?
Yeah. So this is two rainbow trout,
Okay.
lake run, so also known as steelhead. And you can see kind of that lighter area. Okay, and that was the female.
Oh no, I looked down. Did I miss it?
You missed it.
I was trying to help Katie plug in.
So this is kind of pre-spawning. She is just building up her redd, REDD, or it's their nest.
Yeah.
That trout and salmon make, and so they're cleaning out all the fine sediment, making that nice kind of clean area with large gravel in there, and so. They kind of hang out here, and the male will kind of sneak in and do his little kind of, hey, let's spawn. And she's like, I don't think so.
Okay, familiar with that.
Yeah. So, this was a great video. With the GoPro cameras, it's kind of luck. Like I've had some where 40 minutes of video, and maybe it was these same two fish, and they were just barely at you couldn't see them unless you knew they were there, like I did. You wouldn't know. So that was the male there. He was like, "Hey, let's
there they go.
Produce some eggs," and so she's like, "I'm still working on this nest.
Still working on my
leave me
nest."
alone."
Yeah.
But
All right,
lots of fun, just like these are both an area. The water's super shallow here. When it's nice and clear, you just walk to the edge of the creek, and you can watch suckers swimming around and spawning. Cool. You can watch these trout here.
Whoa! She just bit him.
Yeah, it's like, no, thank you, sir.
So these reds, are they? So groupers, they're ecosystem engineers. They'll make little nests, and those will get used by other things in the Gulf, probably elsewhere too. Are these reds used for anything else, or is it just like a spawning bed and then they kind of wash away with the current?
Yeah, Katie, why don't you?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. In like the native range, so the Pacific Northwest, the salmon are kind of, and trout are ecosystem engineers in that their reds sort of stir up things. So like your macroinvertebrates, bugs get stirred up, and that can provide a resource for other animals by basically just by lifting everything up. That happens a bit here in the Great Lakes too. So they are disturbing the bottom, which can have positive and negative impacts to the ecosystem. I'm not totally sure if anything else uses those nests for spawning. That would be a question we could answer on another episode.
Or
Yeah, and there's definitely with the suckers here. I mean, they will. There's a little spatial difference. Like these, we'll have suckers spawning in the same area, but this is a little deeper and a little faster. And so it seems like the trout, they're better swimmers. They kind of hang out over here. Although after this, more recently, they've kind of moved to the center of the creek, right in an area where suckers are probably spawning today or this week. Yeah. So, I don't know that they're searching it out, but there is sort of an overlap there. And
so you have that group with this woman who we just congratulated, who's name? Wendy. Are they, is it science or is it just kind of so just for the collection?
This is part of Karen Murchie's Shed Aquarium, the migratory fish monitoring program. So shout out to Karen, who I asked to make a video last time that we didn't show, but she was okay with that.
We're going to show it. We'll show it next time. Yeah. And we're going to have much more with Karen. I think we're going to try to get Karen. Maybe we'll try to get her when we're all together at the network meeting.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. I had some ideas. Excellent. Okay, cool. Well, anyway, Karen's doing great work. Yes, thank you, Karen. Shout out to Karen. All right, so now for something completely different. So, Tammy, if you could drop the foot in, that would be good. We are in, we don't have a foot.
I think that's trademark.
That probably is, yeah. But anyway, so we're in Toronto, and Carolyn is obsessed with urban fishing in Toronto. It's all she wants to talk about. And so that's fine.
Yes. I mean, I really wanted you to talk. So you're going to make me say it. They were talking about like trying Canadian food on air, things like ketchup chips or poutine or etc. Where I was like, number one, you're in Toronto where there's like a lot of really good food that has like, I don't know that there's much food that I would define as like Canadian. And poutine is a whole thing. But then, you guys kept talking about that. And I was like, no, you're in Toronto. Please talk about these stories about fish in Toronto. So there was a story in the Toronto Star last November about a big fish with even bigger implications, what this unicorn catch means for Toronto's waters. And realistically, I actually wanted you to talk about it because it has unicorn in the title. So they caught a muskie.
Look at this. Oh my goodness. Look how he's holding that. Come on, dude. How old are you? You know he's holding it. The audience here knows how he's holding it. Everyone can't see. They know. It's a cool muskie.
It is. And Katie, can you talk a little bit about why people would be excited to see a muskie in the Toronto Harbor, which is part of Lake Ontario?
Absolutely. So, I mean, anytime you see a muskie is an exciting time. They're known as the fish of 10,000 casts, depending on who you ask.
10,000 casts.
They're kind of difficult to catch, but they're really highly valued as a sport fish.
Watch that guy sway his muskie back
because this is an audio medium.
Yeah.
People are going to just listen to
They're going to hear that overall and be like, man, that guy's sure swaying his muskie.
So, I mean, muskie fishing around the Great Lakes, one of the big places is not too far away, but Lake St. Clair has a big muskie fishery. But why it's kind of unusual in the unicorn is that a lot of these big predatory sport fish, their numbers went down around the Toronto Harbor area with, industrialization, pollution, loss of habitat like coastal wetlands. And so kind of the idea, the bigger implications of this story is hopefully an improving health of the harbor and the surrounding area. But I know Titus has a lot to say about Lake Ontario wetlands and their increase in Lake Ontario in general, so I'll let him take over.
Yeah, I do love. I love all coastal wetlands.
All coastal wetlands are
yeah,
great.
so muskie. Here, yeah, definitely. As Katie said, seeing these in a very urban area is really exciting, and I think it sort of gives you hope for the future. And to circle back to, why do people fish in urban areas and harbors? It's because the people are there. And if the fish are there, and I think there's a lot more people looking at, hey, can we have this urban harbor and also have good habitat and maybe have some cool fish that we can fish for, especially because you don't necessarily need a boat. You don't have to spend a bunch of money to go out on Lake Ontario or one of the Great Lakes. You can fish from shore and
here in Toronto.
Yeah.
Do you know some places?
You just go that way. I'm pointing towards Lake Ontario. I don't
towards
know.
the lake.
So if I had an 8-year-old son here and a 4-year-old dad, if I had many kids, if I just had, it's hard to count. You got these little trackers just in case. And we wanted to go fishing. Should we come up after all fair? Go up to digits or whatever, and will you be able to tell me where to go catch some Toronto fish?
Sure.
Yes. All right.
Absolutely.
We'll do live from there. This is sweet. So it's a good sign. So it means, is that a habitat quality thing? Is that what they've been working a lot to improve the habitat quality? And this is a sign that probably, because a fish that big needs a lot of other fish, right? For it to bioaccumulate all that mercury, it's got to eat a lot of other fish, right? And so that is a good sign.
Yeah. Do we know where that, is it?
Toronto Harbor?
Well, right. But was it
that guy's not giving that up.
Do they stock fish? Are they stocking muskie into here?
No. They said they haven't seen one in like 30 years. I don't know. Not in the harbor.
So like Bay of Quinte and the eastern end of Lake Ontario, the St. Lawrence River as well. Big trophy muskie fishery there too. So, potentially wandered in from somewhere else and said, hey, this is cool.
This is cool.
Then tried to eat something and got a big hook in its mouth.
Fantastic. And then we also have Carolyn, I see a link in here. I think you must have added this. Gordon Lightfoot rainbow trout. So this is timely because Gordon Lightfoot just passed away. R.I.P. I contacted him and his publicist very many times, trying to get them to appear on Teach Me About the Great Lakes, and did not hear back. Not that I blame him or them. But so what is up with this Gordon Lightfoot? The only Gordon Lightfoot song I know is the Edmund Fitzgerald.
I absolutely did not put that in there. So
it says timely Gordon Lightfoot rainbow trout.
Yeah, I put that in there. I thought it was.
What's up? Tell me about the rainbow trout and Gordon Lightfoot.
Well, it's Gordon Lightfoot. A really great connection with the Great Lakes, with the Edmund Fitzgerald.
That's what they call him, actually.
And it's really not about fish. It's more of a love ballad, but I do like the name and appropriate for this show.
Well, then we'll put it in the show notes, which you can find at AskDrFish.com. Oh, Cammy, is this legal?
Are we good?
Okay. Anyway, that did sound good. Sounded Gordon Lightfooty.
Yep.
That's kind of his oeuvre. Speak French since I'm here. Excellent. Well, you should check that out. And
she was all decked out like a rainbow trout. So
that's what that guy. He was feeling husky because he's wagging his muskie.
And see, now I'm only thinking. Now you're thinking about rainbow trout love story. I just keep picturing you with that carp from earlier. That picture, you holding it like a baby, so lovingly.
Like a baby.
Yeah. Tammy says, don't even worry about it. We're good. Stop worrying. You worry too much. I get that a lot. I do, but not in this context. In fact, I've been called the mother of Illinois Indiana Sea Grant, the mommy. Just true. All right. Fantastic. Well, you know what? Once again, you're listening to Ask Dr. Fish. Place for your fish questions, your science questions, your life questions. If you have a question for our doctor's fishes, just put it in the chat right there on Facebook or YouTube, or use the hashtag Ask Dr. Fish. But we'd like to end up every show with a little game. And so what we're going to do is we're going to play a game here. We're going to play one we haven't played in just a little while, called 20 Questions. And we're going to play a single round. We used to play 3-round of 20 questions. That was too many rounds. I'll be honest. It's way too many rounds. So we're going to play one round. And so we're going to have one person who has volunteered to think of a fish. Before we can do that, I forgot. So we haven't had a pandemic during this show, which is overall good. We don't know as much on lamprey as we could, but I haven't had time to sit around, panic in the pandemic, and come up with stupid music for the show. So what I'm going to do, since this is like a showdown, wouldn't you say that, Carolyn? Like it's almost like in the OK Corral. I'll just recycle that from the other show and use it here.
Yep. Go for it, man.
The number one thing I try to do on the show is irritate Carolyn and my so anyway, the showdown. Here we go. I got to come up with music, but I haven't, so we have recycled music. Dr. Catfish, do you have your fish in mind? So here we go. I'm going to hold up here, and hey, listeners, or if you're in the live audience, if you have a question, go for it. We're going to rotate around. I'm going to hold up, and I'm going to totally remember all 20 this time and not lose count. Don't worry. So Katie's going to think of a fish. Do you have a fish?
I do.
You do have a fish. Okay. All right. Titus, would you like to start?
Barbels, yes or no?
Barbels, yes or
No.
no? Barbels. Does it have no barbels? Does it? I think unfortunately this fish is. I only know 3 questions, man. Does it sing while it's doing the deal? Is it like a vocalized, like in song format?
I
think it does. Titus would know. He'd have video or audio.
Killing it. Is it smaller at adult size? Is it smaller than a human hand?
Oh,
No.
no. All right. If you're online, go ahead and put a question in the chat. We'll count it. Or if you're here, any. Oh, we have a guest. Hold on. All right. You'll have to shout it out.
Is it larger than 1 foot?
Is it larger than 1 foot?
As an adult, it can be, yes.
It can be. Ooh, all right. Oh, we got more. We got more live audience.
Does it have an adipose fin?
Oh. Google's
I
what
don't
is
think it
adipose
does.
fin?
So adipose fin is the little tiny fin
Yeah,
on the
that's
back.
the little one right there.
Yeah.
That's where they hold like their change and stuff when they go out.
I don't think it does.
All right. Whose turn is it? Is it my turn? No,
I think it's
Titus.
Titus's turn.
Jaw, yes or no?
Yes.
So
Yes,
it has
jaw.
a jaw.
All right. Does it have teeth that could hurt if it bit me?
Yeah, it could bite.
Does anyone in the audience have a question?
They've already gone 2, man, so it's your turn. If
Darn
you don't
it.
have one,
No, I'm I'm not a good teammate
here's
here.
my other one. Yeah, no, it's fine. Here's my other one. The other one I know. Does it live in the benthos? That's the only question I got. I don't even know what the benthos is.
So the benthos is the bottom. I would say, it's not strictly on the benthos.
Not strictly on the benthos. All right.
Does it live in wetlands?
Not typically.
Okay.
Single dorsal fin?
Yes.
It's technical questions. Oh, we got another audience question.
Does it have ganoid scales?
Does it have ganoid scales?
It does not have ganoid
Oh,
scales.
it didn't go ganoid. Man, got to go ganoid. Wait, hold on. All right. Well, yes, you.
Is it typically eaten?
Is it typically eaten by people?
It is.
Oh, all right. So that's maybe 12. I don't know, something like 12,
12-ish.
12-ish. All right. Eaten by people. Yeah.
Is it a salmon?
No.
Is it a type of salmon? No.
Wasted
Oh wait,
question.
was that a
We already-
guess? If that was a guess, we got to
we
hold.
already had the adipose fin question.
Oh,
Wasted
oh
question.
man.
No, you
know it either
can't give
doesn't
people
have
grief in the audience. You got to give me grief because I'm the one who wastes all your questions all the time.
All right. So because salmon don't
Salmon
have,
have adipose fins.
well, so does this. So salmon.
No,
would
I
have-
said I don't think it has an
You don't
adipose
think
fin.
it has
Yeah.
an adipose?
Do Canadians call it something silly according to Katie?
Oh.
No. So luckily it is not one of the silly Canadian names.
Whoa, like a shoe pick? No, it's Cajun. That's
It's
not
No,
a-
that's Cajun.
It's
Yeah.
not a pickerel.
It's not a
Then.
pickerel, which
Pickerel.
is
Oh,
not a
right.
pickerel.
muskie. They don't have adipose fin. Looks like I was covering it. All right. Let's see.
Subterminal mouth? Or can I just ask what type of mouth it has?
I mean, that wouldn't be a yes or no question. But give me another type and I'll ask it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Subterminal.
it's more terminal.
Okay.
Oh,
Terminal
she's
mouth.
getting look.
I'm
Too
sorry.
nice.
Yeah.
Titus would never. This is why Titus wins all the time. You would never do that. All right. F. Oh, rats. Let's see. Titus, what questions should I ask? Katie has never stumped you before, for the record.
know.
This is. I mean, we have 5 questions.
Spines? Does it have any spines?
Like fin spines?
Uh-huh.
Not really. They're more rays. Fin rays.
Fin rays. Fin rays. Is that a-
I'll also mention this is a fish that is mostly found in Lake Ontario. It can be occasionally found in the other lakes.
Why are you doing this?
Because I want Titus to guess it.
Why you don't have a soapbox topic?
I never have soapbox top.
And mine's just the same thing I did last time.
I can give Titus's. Anyway.
So it's not an Atlantic salmon?
No, hold on.
Nope.
Hold on.
Not an Atlantic salmon.
Right.
Come on, people. This isn't that hard.
See.
All right. We're going to do it. Hold on. All right.
Oh, that's not my guess.
You just guessed it. How is that not your guess if you just guessed it?
But it
That's
fit.
not his that was
You
just
can have multiple guesses. All right. So
excluding.
people eat it. It's in Ontario. Oh, wait.
Well, we know it's not a salmon.
we
but-
know it's not a
But
salmon.
with that.
They've
Oh, I know what it is.
He knows what it is.
Boom.
All right.
Now you can do your drum roll.
17. All right. Now you're supposed to. Now let's do this right. We're always getting it wrong. Give me the guess and then nothing.
Is it the most adorable fish in the world, the American eel?
It is.
Yes,
The American adorable species.
The adorable. People eat that? I
Yeah.
thought we were supposed to eat that.
Well, they're not supposed to eat it, but people eat
People do all kind of things they're supposed to do. Oh my goodness. Well, fantastic. Titus, like every other stupid time, we got to. Titus, it's time for your, once again, 30-second soapbox. Titus Seilheimer, Dr. Fish SG. What do you got?
All right, I'm gonna plug our urban fishing and really urban recreation. These are areas we've turned our backs to for a long time. We've used them as kind of waste areas. We built a lot of industry on them, but hey, a lot of water quality is coming back. We've got better rules in place, and get out there, go enjoy your local urban waterway, go fishing, go paddling, maybe not go swimming. Check your regulations there, but definitely. If you appreciate it, you can really drive it to get even better.
Fantastic. Thank you, Titus. And I'm going to do that this week at IAGLR. And hey, if you are at IAGLR and you're hearing this, come give us a hello. Come talk to us. Ask Dr. Fish is brought to you by the fine people at Illinois, Indiana, Sea Grant, Wisconsin, Sea Grant, and of course, Scooby Dog Media. The show is produced and hosted by Stuart Carlton, Carolyn Foley, Dr. Fish, Katie O-Reilly, and Dr. Fish, Titus Seilheimer. Our live broadcast guru is the eternally patient and amazing Tammy Winslow and is produced by our pals at Great Lakes Now. Thank you, Tammy, who I cannot describe the level she came through. I think the only way to describe it is Tammy. She came through Tammy. She always does. This IAGLR production specifically would not have happened without our pals at the Knowledge Lab at Purdue University, where I got this cool shirt that I made. Cool shirt, Knowledge Lab, Purdue. Thank you, and thanks especially to Robin. Really fun place for you. It's a maker space. I'm a maker. I make things at the maker space. What am I going to do? Hey, the podcast version of this show is edited by the awesome Quinn Rose, and we thank you so much, Quinn, for everything you do. Don't bother checking out her work. She's going to grad school, but thank you for what you do. The podcast artwork is by Ethan Kosak. Go check out his portfolio at ethankosak.com. That's Kosak. He also did the book about animal farting, so you should check that out. And if you have a question for our Dr. Fish, send an email to askdrfish@gmail.com. Use the Twitter hashtag AskDrFish. Give us a ring on our hotline, 765-496-IISG for Illinois, Indiana Sea Grant. That's 4474. Hey, everybody, thanks for listening. And we'll see you live on YouTube and Facebook at 11 Eastern on the second Monday of every even month. And every now and again, like now, live from cool conferences. In between now and then, though, if you have fish questions, science questions, or life questions, just ask Dr. Fish.